That assessment offered a compilation of extensive data collected from residents and community partners, and I reported on the 7 priorities identified by our community as areas where we needed to improve supports for children and families. We have a packed and very exciting schedule this morning. So I'm going to offer just a limited update on some of the work my office has done in pursuit of improving health outcomes and other supports for children and families since we were together a year ago. Coming out of the pandemic, I introduced a referral to invest in recovery for children and families, particularly in the areas of childcare and mental health. Access to high-quality early childhood development programs significantly improves outcomes related to health in Santa Clara County. Childcare is not simply an individual parent's challenge. It is a community-wide concern, and funding it as such will serve the public good. Early investments in childhood are anti-poverty, pro-employment, and simply transform the economic, social, and communal well-being landscape. So this is the work that we are very focused on regarding early childhood education. The other area in which my office is leading the county with support from all of my colleagues is in the area of youth mental health. Every day, we are seeing new studies showing more prevalent mental health concerns for our children and youth. Expanding access to care and wellness services is more critical truly than ever before. Children are 21 times more likely to receive mental health services when those services are provided at their school sites, thus making school partnerships our most critical path to expanding access to care for children. Adding school-based mental health screenings in select districts, enhancing funding across our school contracted clinical providers as students return to campus full-time in 2021, and expanding the contract for our youth mobile crisis program to meet significantly higher levels of demand. The efforts at the state level through the Governor's Master Plan for Kids' Mental Health will be critical to sustaining our local efforts. New efforts to allow Medi-Cal and private insurance to be billed to cover school-based mental health services will also be a game changer in helping all of our kids be well and thrive. Symposium. I have to congratulate the Healthier Kids Foundation on the tremendous work you've all done over the past decade, barriers in the past. One of the most critical interventions Healthier Kids has initiated is the My Health First mental and emotional wellness checks this current school year. Around 3% of children, that's about 200 to date, have been identified as having imminent needs for support, and another 2,500 with other unmet needs. The work of Healthier Kids Foundation to proactively identify these children and support their families in getting connected to care is simply invaluable for all kids. Through her California for All Kids campaign, she champions initiatives to support children's mental and physical health, as well as to provide families with tools to build a solid learning foundation.
Thank you so much, President Ellenberg, for the kind introduction and for the invitation to join you all today. I'm grateful to the Healthier Kids Foundation for gathering this diverse group of professionals and leaders to collaborate and share best practices as we work in partnership to improve children's mental health outcomes. To me, like many of you, this work is personal because as the mother of 4 young children, I know how critical it is to connect the dots between our children's mental health and their well-being at the earliest of ages. It's why when I became first partner, I launched the California for All Kids initiative. Thank you for mentioning that earlier. Our goal is to equitably center the needs of the whole child and provide programs and support for California's children to give them the best start in life and throughout their childhood health infrastructure. And these investments will boost coverage options, service availability, and public awareness so that all children and youth are routinely assessed, supported, and served. So this is a forward-thinking strategy that will ensure that young people can access mental health services where and when they need them. But we all know that an overhaul like this takes time. And so we're taking a multi-pronged approach to ensure that we're holistically meeting the needs of children right now. Because although not every child in California will need clinical mental health services, every child will reap the benefits of consistent routines and habits to maintain their mental health through both prevention and intervention strategies. To that end, the state's Youth Mental Health Resource Hub is up and running now on the California Health and Human Services Agency website. And the hub connects children, youth, families, and educators with resources in both English and Spanish, and resources like the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. And one of the tools I'm most proud of is the California Healthy Minds, Thriving Kids series, People Today. It's also incredibly important to acknowledge the growing impact of devices and social media on the mental health of young people. And that's part of why I think it's so essential that we give kids these tools today. As you know, this week, the U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy issued an advisory warning about social media's impact on developing young brains, stating that youth mental health is the defining public health issue of our time. And the report provides recommendations for youth and caregivers on how we can limit the negative impacts of social media and channel its use for good. Our inductee, Ronnie Lott. And the council has just incredible goals and dedication to promoting physical activity and mindful daily practices for Californians of all ages. And I'm just really, really excited to get that into the schools. It works to reduce the stigma around mental health. The council champions equitable access to the outdoors and community spaces for underserved Californians, which we know is critical to culture. So our children have the tools they need to enjoy a lifetime of movement, mindfulness, and wellness. And as I mentioned previously, we've created the Healthy Minds, Thriving Kids video series with the Child Mind Institute, tool that, frankly, I so benefited from and appreciated that I wanted to bring that sort of whole child perspective and opportunity to California's children. And that's why I've been such a large proponent of Farm to School in concert with universal meals and school gardens, and just making sure that kids are have equitable access to the outdoors, because I know that all of these help me in my own development and benefit, obviously, our short-term, but also our long-term well-being. Experiences and enough conversations with individuals, peers, strangers, caregivers, to understand that we're all going through something in our own way. Everybody has their thing, but that our mental health is so critical to our well-being through the government in California investing, billions of dollars in youth mental health. You have legislation championed by Buffy Wicks, the age-appropriate design code. Feel like every parent I talk to has an issue with are committed, like you all are, to our kids' mental well-being. And in this case, this was a convening where youth who partook in our report.
What do you think is needed to really shift the narrative around childcare from being the sole responsibility of an individual parent to a community responsibility that really promotes the public good? And might that be your next documentary?
Yeah, no, thank you. And you're asking the right question. I mean, childcare, greater happiness, again, better sex lives. And then the benefits to children are tremendous. Children have.
Hear me?
I can.
Okay, I have the pleasure of introducing my friend Cindy Chavez. So please read her bio, because I'm not going to say and I would describe Cindy as a natural leader. And I say that from the perspective of, I worked for a member of Congress for 18 years, and I met leaders all across the country, every level and every type. Positive fades. So we have to do everything we can to recapture those positive memories, but also to create new ones, because experiences like today that are positive, they're creating new neurological pathways to imprint the positive.
Issues. So what I'm really excited about is this institution being able to provide services on both fronts. It's really revolutionary, and it's something that I'm hopeful that as we learn more, we're going to do better to protect the health and well-being of children at a much younger age. You know, you led on this in terms of, especially with young pregnant mothers. And I think what we have to make sure of is the wellness center movement that Dr. Dewan is leading, as so many of our schools are leading, really gets embedded into our institutions again, so it's commonplace and it's easy to access. And frankly, we've got to be very evidence-based, because at some, you know, we don't have unlimited resources, and we need to really figure out what is going to help a child succeed. The Healthier Kids Foundation, frankly, the ability to screen children, and the younger we can screen them and the sooner we can get them connected to a service, as the Healthier Kids Foundation does now, being able to do that in mass is going to make all the difference in the world, because what it will demonstrate is what the actual need is. And then government and the industries can continue to respond to that. And then one other thing I'll just say, I know that there are a lot of practitioners and nonprofit leaders on this call. The vans that go out into the community and respond right when a family needs them, you know, Pacific Clinics, Allen Rock Counseling Center, that is exactly the kind of work that needs to be done. Community Solutions in South County, figuring out every single way to help a child. Healthier Kids, at Kathleen in particular, pushing us to do so much more and do better. Because what I think, and I'm so excited, I don't know if Supervisor Ellenberg is still on, but we know that we need to put a bright lens on children, because we've got to be in the prevention business and the intervention business and get out of the.
Okay, with that, I'm going to ask you your first question, but I'm going to preface it with something that we found in Healthier Kids Foundation that is just extremely discouraging, and that is,
in a very visceral way. And we didn't realize how much that impact was going to be. And so, you know, we need to make sure that we're prepared to support our children more intensely, to be a lot more involved in that. Those traditional support systems that we normally wouldn't see providing this level of support, like our schools. Our schools are our hubs, but they're not meant to provide everything. For superintendent has led the charge in terms of having this as a best practice, but because our communities actually need this, we need to have a source of support from our schools and to have a more comprehensive care.
Thank you. Thank you for, you know, embedding your personal experience with your own children, because it makes just all very real and brings it right up to the surface. And I'm just wondering, when you see this situation as deeply as you do, are there particular support systems that you would prioritize?
Our systems are failing them, and not necessarily because of the people within those systems, because there's some really, really great people, like the folks who are all attending today, who are partners and supporting the well-being of our children and families. But unfortunately, our systems have meant to trip our children in a certain way or lead them in certain paths. And so one of the really important things that we need to do is take a look at our race and equity policies and make sure that our systems that we are undoing that with anti-racist policies. And there's a plethora of areas, of course, that I think are really important. We need to prioritize our childcare, just like President Ellenberg and Supervisor Chavez have mentioned, as well as First Partner, and prioritize our after-school care, our behavioral health, and all of the family support systems, including that workforce development, because as we have seen, women have taken a step back during the pandemic because we've fallen into some of the traditional gender roles that society has tried to continue to see generational damage to our children. And so what we invest now, and this is what our children's data book also tells us, is that the early impacts shape tomorrow's impacts for our kids. So we need to build support now, build resilience, while we're also working on long-term system improvements and system changes. And so we must have later impacts earlier and what happens to our teens and adults will.
We have professionals at schools who have been overwhelmed for years with addressing the special needs of students with special educational mental health needs. What about the huge number of kids who are experiencing developmental educational delays or mental health crises as a result of the pandemic?
Don't have the time to do all of these referrals and some of the hand holding and the warm handoffs to some of the programs. And so I think what is really ideal is to integrate those folks who can actually have the time and the responsibility to do that. Not only to in a way to provide support directly to our children, but also to take that load and that responsibility off. Schools are doing together. And if they're not, it's not necessarily because they don't want to. Sometimes our systems are just overwhelmed, but we need our voices, our parent voices, to be heard as well. And I'm really proud of all of our schools that are just doing absolutely fabulous after this post-pandemic isolation of our children.
Let's see. We need to address parenting issues, parent trauma, parent resilience.
Shops integrated into those school services. And so, and I see in the chat that Mariela Garcia who is a part of our team. She's responding to a little bit about what you're saying, but absolutely, I think parents need to be supported. We need to make sure that to them, but at this point, they are our community hub. And so we're going to have to ask them to step up to that role. And if they don't, then we're going to have to demand for them to step up to that role for the sake of our own children. People about it, but you yourself make it happen as a parent. And there is nothing more, I think, gratifying than going into a system and making some of these changes, not just for yourself and for your child, but for our.
In an infographic kind of way, giving us a lot of really good data that I think has great impact around policy, our practices, and certainly should inform the way our elected officials think about the future of children in our community. So excuse me for going into professor mode, but I'm going to get through some slides. There's some great information here that we should be really thinking about as we work on behalf of children in Santa Clara County anxiety. But then if we look at school enrollment decreasing, then let's look at really the slides move to us to what's the basic needs, our self-sufficiency, and children in poverty. Really, what is the state of our children and with our community? Now, an area that I know a lot about and have cared about for a really long time is childcare, attention to. The numbers are shocking. In California, the #1 reason children are hospitalized is for mental health, is the key to mental health. And on the systemic level, the Health and Human Services and the Children and Youth Behavioral Health Initiative, the Youth at the Center report found, quote, working with young people, they found the biggest challenges facing them are systemic racism, lack of access to care, inadequate funding, and the lack of imagination about from whom and where young people can receive services. We have to think about this differently. All the more reason for Healthier Kids Foundation to focus on the wellness screening for children in 5th grade, and for the County of Santa Clara to make mental health services more available to children through wellness centers at the schools that we just talked about, and to build an inpatient psychiatric facility that Supervisor Chavez was referring to.
Thank you so much, Brad. Hi, everyone. Happy to be here and connect with all of you. Really appreciate this amazing opportunity to briefly discuss the association between oral health and mental health. And I want to really thank and appreciate all the amazing and impactful insight from all the wonderful speakers this morning. Absenteeism. In fact, children with oral health problems are 3 times more likely to miss school, which is alarming given the high prevalence of cavities in this age group over time. Johnny's story highlights the profound impact that oral health problems can have on a child's mental health. More challenges. Addressing oral health issues not only benefits a child's physical well-being, but also can help restore their self-esteem, their confidence, and their overall mental health. the importance of accessible dental care and support systems like Healthier Kids Foundation school-based screenings cannot be overemphasized, ensuring that oral health problems are detected and treated. A cross-sectional analysis using the National Survey of Children's Health Database from among 3 to 17-year-olds from 2017 showed the prevalence of oral health problems among those with mental health disorders to be about 22.5%. Lastly, we're always working to expand data collection with our partners in order to better understand the current status of oral health across all ages. If you're interested in collaborating, please do not hesitate to reach out to us in our program. There's a lot to be done. However, through these various avenues, we can work together to improve the physical and mental health of children in our county. Thanks so much for your time.
Samaya, thank you. And Fred, that was an excellent coverage of our work. I really appreciate it and hope we can get out more details to help their help. So we're going to take a 10-minute break, but you must, Children's Health, Sarius Sang, Cadango, Santa Clara Family Health Plan, KPMG, Indian Health Center of Santa Clara Valley, El Camino Health.
Hi, I'm Emily Chow. I'm a senior forward on the Stanford women's soccer team, and I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. I'd like to say that mental health shouldn't be a taboo subject. I think mental health is just as important as physical health. It affects your everyday life. As someone who's been injured.
Want a worry-free way to kill bugs? Zevo traps use light to attract and trap flying insects with no odor and no mess.
Hi, my name is Sierra Engi. I'm a fifth-year senior, and I'm from San Diego, California, and I play midfield. Mental health is really important to me, and I don't think it's discussed enough. You know, we take care of so many other aspects of our life, like how we are physically, the food that we're eating, the sleep that we're getting, but we don't spend enough time taking care of our mental health.
One of our representatives that is in Florida is with us today, and many around the state. So thanks, keep it up. We are now going on to a presentation on our Universal School Wellness Program.
Turn their cameras on and say hello. But on the behalf of Healthier Kids Foundation, I want to thank you for joining us for this year's symposium and sticking through us through the morning presentations and being here with us this afternoon. We've had quite the lineup of speakers so far, and I also want to give a quick shout out to Catherine Aspiris out of the Behavioral Health Department in Santa Clara County, and also Lisa Hom over at Palo Alto Medical Foundation, who have been really tremendous supporters of the My Health First program this far, who has worked with Healthier Kids Foundation for 2 years as a parent advocate. In that role, she follows up with parents of students who have unmet needs and supports them in accessing services. So before I get into the program itself, I want to share a little bit about who Healthier Kids Foundation is. We're a nonprofit established in 2001. Our vision is that all Silicon Valley youth achieve good health, educational equity, and success in life as productive community members. If you're familiar with Healthier Kids Foundation, which I believe many of the people on the phone are, and likewise there are some that aren't, you probably know us for our physical health screenings that we do in the school setting. So that's for vision, dental, and hearing, and follow-up. Beginning in 2020, we added a universal school-based wellness check to move toward a whole child approach, because we know that our kids' emotional health is just as important to their ability to learn in the classroom as their physical health is. The goals of this program are to reduce stigma associated with having mental health needs and accessing mental health services. All students with needs, their parents are contacted by a Healthier Kids Foundation parent advocate. They will collaborate together to identify supportive services that might be useful for the whole family. They complete a secondary questionnaire that encourages the parents to reflect themselves on how their child has been doing over the last 7 days. This opens the door for the conversation about an exploration of the needs that the families might have. From there, Healthier Kids Foundation can assist with a warm handoff to behavioral health services or other basic resources that families identify that they need. All right, so since the program's pilot in 2020, Healthier Kids Foundation has conducted 6,415 wellness checks The pilot was conducted among 5th graders at Franklin McKinley and Luther Burbank school districts. And again, Healthier Kids Foundation's parent advocate team follows up with all the students identified with unmet need and an imminent risk during the wellness check. Now I want to go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Carmen Garcia to share some insights from Morgan Hill Unified School District.
This visual represents an overview of the follow-up and the support provided to our students and families. If you look at the middle section on the left-hand side, we highlight the level of referrals made on behalf of the 49 students. So for us in Morgan Hill Unified School District, our key takeaways from our partnership with Healthier Kids Foundation, and in particular with the My Health First initiative, include the importance of reducing stigma, services, and resources. By providing these wellness checks, we have been able to connect families to numerous community resources such as housing, tutoring, counseling, clothing, financial assistance, and access to food and community closets. Another theme is strengthening family and school relationships. Through the wellness checks, we were able to identify and provide support to students struggling with mental health needs and resource needs that otherwise would have gone unseen. Social-emotional needs. It also highlights for us as a school district the need for additional wellness centers at all school sites. We have 4 very robust wellness centers at our secondaries, but we need to expand our wellness rooms at the other schools.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. Really honored to have you with us today to share what we've been doing with Morgan Hill. And I completely agree, those sites that we have wellness centers in, it's been really tremendous to work with them to provide wraparound services from all sides to support that student. So thank you, support. Parent advocates work closely with the school district staff and those established wellness center sources. We work directly with the school district on referrals to behavioral health. 9%, those are for food. Here, 24% are to behavioral health. And then next in green is an internal referral that we make to the 10 Steps to Healthier You program that we have. And what's really interesting here is that in the last year, the percentage of referrals going to food has surpassed those going to behavioral health services, which I think really reflects the need to continue to meet families where they are and provide those basic needs services.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending today. My name is Teresa. I am a Spanish-speaking parent advocate with Healthier Kids Foundation. My team and I follow up with the parents of students who were identified as having needs through the wellness check. Our goal is to help them get supportive services. I was born and raised in San Jose and lived in the neighborhoods we're currently providing screenings.
We're having today. I, in addition, wanted to point out on pages 15 through 18, some of the references to mental health and wellness, and many of our speakers who also address the need for expanded school-based behavioral health and mental health services. These and on school boards throughout the county are really committed to centering youth, fostering inclusion and belonging as part of our efforts to expand access to mental health and wellness services on every school campus in the county, including my personal goal to ensure that they're, on the next slide, you'll see that the types of things that students have mentioned are very important to them in being able to access mental health and wellness services at schools. Next slide. I specifically want to acknowledge the Student Wellness Advisory Group members, young people from throughout Santa Clara County, representing middle school, high school, and young adults at the community college. Next slide. The Student Wellness Advisory Group is anchored in a number of key community agreements and recently launched a campaign to share their belief that working all together, we can advance what they call HECA-WELL, which is ensuring that each child know authentic wellness. Please join our campaign to ensure that all of our youth are HECA-WELL. As we advance our school-based behavioral health services model and work to ensure that wellness centers are available, in his work
and is going to help us understand the power of these relationships as we work to advance school-based behavioral health services and wellness centers across Santa Clara County. And renowned speaker, he is the author of The Good Life, which he is going to speak with us about today.
Stressed out. What we're interested in is how their bodies respond, how quickly they recover from that, and also their emotions that they experience during that time as well. We also do observations of their families, particularly with close people that they're close to, like partners in their life. So we're trying to collect data from a variety of sources to learn about how they're doing in life. This was a study that found and really made an important contribution long before I was involved in the study, that our ways of dealing with challenge, dealing with adversity, and the emotions that those kinds of adversities produce, really important determinant of how well we're doing. So our ways of coping, a really important predictor of how we adapt and how happy we are in our life, health, but maybe also our brain health. And then the finding that I want to highlight for this audience in particular, those ratings that were done in the 1930s when our researchers went into the homes of all of the participants, all 724, and they rated the interactions, the quality of interactions that our participants were having with the parents, the consistency, the presence, the warmth, and the degree to which those parents were able to structure those interactions. Between the quality of the childhood environment and the ability of people to function well in terms of meeting adversity, and late in life in terms of their intimate connections with others. And remember, late in life is a difficult, challenging time in terms of the physical challenges that people are met with. So being able to depend on others, being in a secure relationship has great benefits. And we showed connections with earlier experience. I'm going to end with some data here. I was pleased to see some data presented by previous presenters. This is a complicated graph, and I'm going to break it down really simply here. So this was an important study that was published in late 80s. That was one of the first studies to show the connection between social connection and physical health. So these are 5 different studies with multiple populations, and I want you just to focus on the y-axis here. This is the likelihood of dying at any age. What I want to say is that there's a lot of interest in this kind of research, and the best example of that is just in the last few weeks, the Surgeon General, as most of you know, Vivek Murthy, put out a public health advisory about a crisis of social connection in the United States. He's talking about the epidemic of loneliness. This is a problem because loneliness is rampant. Statistics suggest that.
And also for the systems that we work in. We do have a number of questions and I think some comments from the audience, just how much they were looking forward to hearing from you today. So I'd like to begin by just asking, did you see any generational effect on happiness in this study?
Yeah, so it's really interesting when you do a study that traces people's lives carefully, follows them across 8.5 decades. And this was a generation born during the Depression. The students who were at Harvard were a little bit older. 91% of them served in World War II. So they had some incredible challenges growing up that are different than the challenges that young people, I think, face today, that they need. So that study that I mentioned, in which we found links between the kind of relationship that kids had with their parents in adolescence and childhood, that predicted the quality of their relationship 60 or 70 years later, is astounding. The link was small, but across 6 or 7 decades, that suggests how important those kinds of interactions and connections with caring adults can be for young kids. And I should say, important, not all of the people in our sample, a number of these folks grew up in very difficult circumstances. Their families were struggling. That connection doesn't always have to come from a primary caretaker. It could be a relative that plays an important role for kids growing up. It could be, as kids get older, it could be a teacher or a coach, someone from the community that plays that role. Study after study has shown that people who grow up in difficult circumstances, one of the most important things is to have one caring adult in their life.
And their community. So it sounds like you see that the relationships are key, not just for adults, as was found in the study, but also for children. Have you seen similar findings in any other studies? Are able to thrive?
I think that's right. So one good example is that we all need to learn how to deal with challenges and our emotions in our lives. There's a discussion that's going on about the importance or the utility or wisdom of doing this in schools. Things like learning about emotions and strategies for learning them. We learn these often through relationships with the people that we spend the most time with growing up. So
the ways that we're different now in terms of in-person interaction affecting relationships.
Yeah, so lots of thoughts about this topic. I think it's a really important topic. I think we're still trying to figure out how to navigate with some of the new technologies. But a few ideas. One is, again, parents really important models for their kids. So one of the neat things in my own house growing up is if my wife or I talk about old friends that we have, and we talk about the joy and the closeness that we have or the support that we get from friends, our kids have learned to know who those friends are, even if they've never met them in person. And then when that opportunity comes and they meet them in person, they say, oh, yes. What's different is these technologies are evolving very quickly, and there are generational gaps in how the technologies are being used. So a lot of young people will tell me, I don't need in-person connections in the same way that previous generations did or my parents do. And I don't think that's true. At least we don't know that to be true from a scientific standpoint. I think it's probably not true, but we and others are doing that research. So we want to encourage kids to get out of the house.
Other peers their age or play group, or even childcare. Any thoughts or wonderings about how we as a community may need to take that into consideration as we're helping young people develop relationships, knowing how important they are?
We had to rely on technologies for almost all of their connections with their peers. We need to look carefully at what they're experiencing as we come out of the pandemic. All of us lost practice in having conversations and being together. We're all figuring it out again. But for younger kids, again, figure out ways to get back into that mood of in-person connection so we can model for kids in important ways. All of us, though, need to get out of the house. There's an epidemic of loneliness, and I think part of that, what that means is our connections with others need to be cultivated, definitely true for adults, in an intentional way, a deliberate way. And I think we need to do the same with kids to help them with those connections. Yeah, so I think starting simply about opportunities for kids to be next to each other, playing, doing activities, shared projects, more important than ever to have those opportunities. I think a focus on teaching emotional and relationship skills, really important. I think it's even more important after the pandemic. Basic things like helping people identify different kinds of emotions. So research shows that
their time. So how we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives. So with work being such a large part of our life and knowing that human connection leads to a happier life, do you have any thoughts or?
Yeah, to deal with other people. And many of them began to feel quite anxious and disconnected from others. They began to experience loneliness very early on. So we all need connection. We don't need to have lots and lots of connections in our life to flourish. For some people who may be more introverted, it may be one person in their life that they have that kind of connection with that allows them to thrive. For most people, it's probably more than one, but introversion doesn't mean that connections are not important. We think it's useful to think about our connections with others, just like we think about physical fitness. And first step is being deliberate and reflective about where I'm at. So what's working well for me? Who are the people in my life that are important to me and energizing and that I get to see on a regular basis? Who are those people that are really energizing and important that I'm not seeing in my life? Because my life has gotten busy. I have work, I have children I'm taking care of. I have new friends and new social networks. We may lose an important relationship, even a primary relationship through divorce or separation. We need to rebuild our social networks. Now, this kind of maintenance, what we call social fitness, is really important to lean into at all stages of life. Important for everyone, folks who feel like they're doing well, because life changes. We're often dealt new challenges, but life is all about change in the way that you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being with us today and for sharing the good life with us. You've given us a lot of inspiration and some great next steps.
Together. So we'll let you go get on to other couples unless you want to get some of us couples involved. So we'll let you go ahead. And I am now going to thank our speakers this morning and introduce the next CEO of Healthier Kids. I am so pleased it's going to be Melinda K. Snavely.
And Dr. Garcia talked about, or it's our physical health screenings. We'd love to get involved with your child's district and school community. For the latest updates, continue to follow us on social media. We have an incredible team here that manages those for us, and we're so thankful for them. And let's work together to put every child first and make sure that they are happy and healthy for the rest of their life. Thank you so much, Kathleen and the team. It's been wonderful to be here with you today.
Hey.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting us today. I'm Roseanne Berthrana-Richka. I work for the County of Santa Clara Social Services, and I'm going to go through kind of the nuts and bolts, just picking it up where Kathleen left off. For the 3 years during the pandemic, we did not have to, if you did not turn in your redetermination, or if you did turn in your redetermination, for everyone to keep health insurance. But now that the public health emergency has been declared over, we're now going back to annual renewals are back. You need to take action to keep your Medi-Cal. This is what's going to happen for those people. 2 months before your Medi-Cal renewal is due, we'll mail you a letter about your Medi-Cal coverage. What happens is we try to go out there and figure out if all the information in our case is still the same. And I am going to hand it off to the next people because I'm here today with our managed care plans.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Jocelyn Ma, and I am with Santa Clara Family Health Plan. I manage our community outreach. And today I'm going to be sharing a little bit about what Santa Clara Family Health Plan is doing to ensure that our members know that they need to renew their Medi-Cal. And so give me 1 second to share my screen across the county. For renewal, we are directing people who need assistance with Medi-Cal and covered California applications and renewals to make an appointment with our community health workers or certified enrollment counselors, or with other community partners as well.